You are watching a Healing Element Podcast special. Show your support by subscribing to the Healing Element Podcast YouTube channel. Also, follow us on Instagram at the Healing Element Podcast. Hello and welcome to the Healing Element Podcast. I am your host, Kai Marie, and thank you so much for joining me for this Healing Element Podcast special. Tonight's topic is Shut 'em Down, Black Women, Racism in Corporate America. So we're actually talking about the book, which this broadcast is titled after. And the women that I have on the platform this evening, they actually have contributed to the book. Shut 'em Down, Black Women, Racism in Corporate America. And if you go to the description box, you will see a link to the book and you can purchase your own copy to read their stories. With that being said, I would like to introduce our panel this evening. We have Nadeige. Did I say correctly?
Nadeige.
Nadeige. I'll get it before the end of the program, Nadeige. She will be sharing her story along with Alyssa, Tiffany, and Vaughn. So welcome, ladies, to the program. It is an honor to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so for those that are watching, please make sure you share tonight's episode. I'm sure a lot of Black women who will be listening to this can relate to the stories that we're going to hear tonight. And this is also about healing. It's about different strategies that the women on this panel have incorporated into their lives to begin to deal with issues that they have experienced in the workplace. And so the whole purpose of our conversation and this podcast is to make sure that the information we provide, that you can apply it to your own lives and begin to make the changes that you need to heal and move in this system that is very challenging for the Black community, to say the least. So with that being said, we're going to jump into our program this evening. If you have any questions or comments for our guests, please just drop them in the comment box and I'll be sure to bring them up. If it is for someone specifically on the panel, please just drop a note to let me know and we will go from there. So first, we want to just talk about the background to creating this book. And Nadeige, since we had been in communication previously, we were both on the Fleet Matthews program, and that's where I met you and got the opportunity to chat with you, which was an awesome experience. I'm glad that we were able to make that connection. Can you tell me a little bit about the background to this book?
Absolutely. The first thing I want to do is thank Dr. Carey for giving us the opportunity to share. This is a discussion that she had begun back June 2020 on LinkedIn. She got such an overwhelming response that she realized that she needed to create a part 2 to the conversation. It wasn't a conversation that was a simple cut and dry. It needed to continue. So she opened up the opportunity to have an anthology in which women could contribute their stories in an attempt to start a conversation that would help us to triumph over adversity. And this is what brought us here to you today. And this is how we came to the table, and this is how we're starting the conversation. So thank you again, Kai, for inviting all of us.
You're muted.
Kai, you're muted.
Awesome. You didn't hear that? I'm just teasing. So thank you for that, Nadeige. So I want everyone to share their story, how they were able to make a contribution to the book. Vaughn, could we start with you, please? Could you share how you were able to connect and share your story? Oh, Vaughn, can you hear me?
Yes, I didn't hear my name though. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So as Nadeige said, it was a collaboration of conversations started on LinkedIn. I didn't know any of the other authors personally, nor did I know the visionary personally. So the collaboration was first and foremost a godsend, because as we began to work on the project itself, we had several meetings where we got to know each other. And what was amazing to me was that many of us had suffered through some of the same incidents, different environments, different people, of course, even different generations. But there was a thread in many of our stories, not all, but many of us had the very same similarities.
And Alyssa, as far as so you were also involved with the discussion that was taking place online. Is that how you were able to
Yes.
then contribute? Okay.
Uh-huh.
And Alyssa, so you were also a part of that dialogue as well. Is that what led you to say, yes, I definitely want to be a part of writing my story?
No, I don't know how, but I wasn't connected to Dr. Carrie Azid on LinkedIn, but someone that I was connected with had liked that conversation, or had, was participating in that conversation. And I looked at Dr. Carrie's LinkedIn and I thought, wow, this woman, this amazing Black woman, is out here having conversations that folks really need to have. And so I followed her on LinkedIn, and then I saw she was blasting out and having like info sessions for folks to come and learn about the anthology, and she was just very encouraging. So it took me a moment to really want to get out there and join in the conversation. I was someone who kind of like observed from a little bit of a distance before I really felt ready. And then Dr. Yazid had everyone submit an abstract for their chapter or their portion of the anthology. And so that's when I really got involved. I took a lot of time doing my abstract and turned it in, and then I didn't meet any of the co-authors until I was selected as one, and we got to meet and get to know each other, like Vaughn was saying. So I was really like from the outside looking in. I'm very happy that I joined in, but it did take me a little while to get the courage. I give a lot of credit to Dr. Carrie for her just inspiration and motivation in, having Black women come forward and share their stories, especially those of us who weren't maybe comfortable before doing that.
That's so true. It's so amazing how so many of us have similar experiences, but very rarely do we feel like there's safe spaces to share what we've gone through. And I think with this book and you sharing your story, that you provided that space. So thank you. And we are going to get to your background so the audience can also know just from the lens in which you're sharing your stories from. Before we do that, Tiffany, I do want to know how you got involved with this project as well.
My involvement was different. I was not one of the authors. What happened is that as some of these experiences were coming up for some of the women, Dr. Yazid realized, okay, we need to have kind of a debrief and kind of have a counseling moment of sorts, kind of a group. It wasn't really group therapy in the traditional sense, but just kind of a healing circle is probably the best way that I would explain it, for the women to come and just really kind of talk about some of the long-term impacts and really just process how they were feeling with bringing up these really intense experiences. And like Vaughn said, there were so many similarities between those experiences, equally horrific and just like, oh my God, wait a minute, that really happened. And at the same time, oh wait, that happened to me too. I thought I was the only one. So Dr. Yazid kind of brought me in just kind of to facilitate those conversations, to help the ladies with some coping skills and things like that, because I am a therapist in private practice. And so that's how I met the authors. And we sat, we talked for, it was about an hour and a half. I think our first, our meet and greet was, and they were about to go to print. when she realized, wait a minute, the same thing that we did behind the scenes, we need to actually cover in the book. So there was myself and there were two other therapists, Dr. Dangerfield and um, Dr. Carroll, who were all brought in to add kind of that clinical piece to the project, which made it a little bit more balanced. So that, because what she said when she approached us was she didn't just want it to be all gloom and doom and all of these, you know, heavy stories. She wanted to infuse some hope, some tips, some strategies to actually work through it. So that's actually how I met all of the ladies. It wasn't until after I had a working relationship with Dr. Yazid prior to that, and she called me in on the project, and it was, you know, it's been great.
Wonderful. And I think that's the, you know, just when dealing with racism, whether it's on the job or in some other social setting, a lot of times the pain that you feel, the traumatic situations, you kind of go home and you don't know what to do with it. And sometimes it could mean taking out on family, taking out on, you know, because you just don't know what to do with all this internal, it could be rage that you're feeling. So I love the strategies that you provide to help put language to how you're feeling and be able to kind of walk through and start to have a conversation. So that way you're not bottling up the feelings inside. Vaughn, wanting to go to you now to share your background, the work that you do so that our audience can get to know a little bit more of everyone who is on the panel. So can you share, as far as your background, the work that you do, and a little bit of your story that you contributed to the book, please?
Yes, sure. So by paid profession, I am an occupational safety and health consultant. Most people think that's working in the field of security, but if I mention the term OSHA, DOT, EPA compliance, they absolutely then understand what it is that I do. And so I have been in that field since 1986, and I own a safety and health consulting company. I have two locations, Dallas, Texas, and a Midwest location in St. Louis, Missouri. I also oversee a nonprofit for female veterans, explicitly those that are homeless with children. We provide housing and resources in that capacity. I am a retired Air Force veteran, and I also am an ordained minister as well as a life coach, working with women, predominantly women that are in transition, whether that's career transition, whether it's age transition, they're starting over, you know, especially during this pandemic, people lost jobs and they're 60 years old, they're 45. How do they begin again? Sometimes that's related to loss of a spouse. How do they go on to the next level, or even find what that next level should be? So that's pretty much what I do from day to day. I like to say that I'm serving for life and limb, because whether it's ministry, whether it's safety and health, my goal is to sustain life, empower lives, inspire people to want to live, even, you know, because sometimes that's a category. And if I may, I want to piggyback on what Dr. Tiffany has said. The impact of their presence, the counselors, the social workers, the therapists, was so necessary, because as you were relating to Kai, many times we have buried those experiences or really don't relate to our current behaviors as a bleed out. And I say a bleed out because oftentimes people are bleeding on someone else, because that happened to me 15 years ago, and I am still angry about it. I am still bitter about it. I didn't get the release. I didn't get the clinical help if that was needed. I prayed about it and I thought I was okay, but there are triggers that are so subliminal and sometimes submerged. And so what we found on this project is that there were some women that identified, I'm not over it. I'm really not over it. Raise your hand if you're not over it. You know, did you find yourself still dealing with, did you cry as you were writing that chapter? Did you feel the pain as you were remembering? And so I just want to say, even for our listening audience, it's so related to ministry. You never want to open up a wound without offering a healing process.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much, Vaughn. And I'm glad that, you know, we are putting solutions together. And I'm happy that the solutions, I don't know if happy is the right term, a little bit stronger than that, but I'm glad that the solutions are being created by us, right? We are the ones that are saying, this is what we need, and this is how we need to heal. And I think there's so much power in that, in which we're able to heal through sharing our stories and enacting strategies that help us. Nadeige, could you please provide your background and also anything that you would like to add to what Vaughn has stated?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I started out in law practice. I was in that industry for the past 10 years, and today I'm transitioning into arts. My studies in university was music, and so I'm pushing for music only because not only is it beautiful, but it is a wonderful tool to heal and also make the world a better place. So I am an educator. I teach English and language arts, and I'm very active in the community. One of the organizations that I'm very involved with is the Youth Arts Enrichment Program in Miami, and I'm also involved with music ministry in my local church. So if you're interested in connecting with me, I am on LinkedIn. You could also see what's trending with our book, Shut 'Em Down, on YouTube.
Thank you, Nadeige. And is there anything that you would relate it to what Vaughn had said as far as that healing and still years later, just still kind of carrying the hurt, right, from that, from the job, from the workplace? What did you experience writing therapeutic to share your story within the book?
Well, before I could get to the stage where I could even share my story, I had to heal myself. I come from a Christian background, and one of the things that they talk about is forgiveness. But before you can forgive the offender or who you feel has offended you, you need to be able to deal with your own emotions sometimes. So one of the parables that I found very healing was the house built upon a rock. For those of you who are familiar with that story in the Bible, that is the story that I related to, because I found that when I experienced my difficult circumstance, that I think that I would have stood stronger under the pressure if I had cultivated my prayer and meditation time more. And I realized that that part was lacking in my life under the extreme circumstances that I was dealing with. And I found a lot of healing for myself in my heart when I rededicated my life to the Lord. And that is how I healed myself enough to be able to share and give back my testimony through the anthology.
Beautifully said. And I think that's so important because as you began your healing journey, I imagine that maybe things that you, what is it called? When you start to kind of absorb it. I can't think of the word that I'm trying to think of, not absorb, but internalize. Maybe internalize what's being going on as you begin to heal. Does it feel like that burden of internalizing, like, did I do this? Kind of wrecking your brain to think, did I do this? Did I bring this on myself? Maybe there's something I did wrong. As you began to heal, did you feel like those thoughts, or did those thoughts come, and were they kind of released as you began to go through your own healing process?
I will say I did use a professional therapist as well, in addition to my regular meditation prayers and Bible studies. I also sought out a lot of other professionals that work in career coaching to help me resolve the issue in my own mind.
Mm-hmm.
That helps to put things in perspective. So you've got to seek the resources out that are out there for you. Just like Vine had mentioned in a previous podcast, you can't just pray and meditate. Sometimes you've got to do something. So with all of those things combined, that's what kind of brought me through. And I realized through that experience that I could not neglect myself. It taught me about self-care.
Huge.
You know, you've got to be able to care for yourself appropriately and understand what's important to you. What are your values? And then once you can recognize that, you can choose the right opportunities because you can see clearer and you can partner with the right individuals that can help you to attain the goals that are important to you and important to them, and have a better chance of having a partnership that is successful and mutually beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Totally agreed. And for you, Tiffany, understanding the angle that you came in to work with the women and creating a healing circle. But you know, if there's experiences you have had dealing with the microaggressions, being in certain settings, please share that. And then my other question is, have you noticed, since starting to have more of this dialogue, have you noticed that Black women are more kind of opening up to talk about their experiences in the workplace instead of just kind of keeping it to themselves?
It's interesting because concurrent with everything that was going on with the publication of the book, I was in a process of just kind of evaluating who my clients were, just, you know, looking at what their needs were, how I could better serve them, because we were winding down 2020, you know, getting ready to, you know, go into the new year and just trying to readjust some things. And what I ended up finding was that actually a good 90% of my clients are Black females. And a lot of these issues were what were surfacing in one way or another in just their normal weekly, bi-weekly sessions. They didn't really have a word for it. They, you know, it's I'm stressed out, I'm overwhelmed, I'm working 3 times as hard, I'm getting, you know, a quarter of the pay, that type of pressure. And one of the things throughout 2020 that had been a theme, to kind of piggyback on something Nadeige said, was self-care. And what I found is that we think, and by we, I'm using the, you know, the general we, most people, when they think about self-care, they think about like a spa day, a mani-pedi, you know, kind of like just chilling out at the beach or something like that. There are really 8 dimensions of self-care. And your occupational wellness is one of those dimensions. And so when you've got issues at work, most of us spend more time working than we do even sleeping, right? Because most of us are like, I'll sleep when I'm dead. And we've got that, you know, that strong Black woman thing, which is a whole nother conversation. But that, when we start to realize that work wellness is a part of our overall wellness, and that you have to be well at work, you have to have things outside of work, you have to have good relationships, you've got to, yes, take care of yourself physically, but you've also got to take care of your spiritual self. You've got to take care of your emotional self. And when something is off in one of those dimensions, typically what we find is that there's disruption other places, because you're going to, as humans, we're going to seek balance. We're going to seek harmony, right? So if there's something not quite right over here, we're going to try and overcompensate in another area. The problem is that work-related stressors, because there's so much time spent there, they have such a huge impact. So having this book now for me has become more of a tool for my client base to say, told you weren't crazy, but you didn't believe me. You thought I was just saying it because I'm the therapist and I'm supposed to say nice things. Here's 21 other women who have had this, you know, have had these similar themes that have happened to them. Now, do you believe me? Now, will you go to HR? So there's something to be said about the gift of testimony, right? So to go back, you know, I'm a church baby by nature. And, you know, we always say we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And I think that this project was a huge step forward with giving voice to women who have suffered these things and really didn't have a word to call it. They just thought it was work. That's what happens when you work. But when we start looking at it through the lens of, no, this qualifies as traumatic stress, and this is how that manifests, and this is, you know, like you said, the other places where it spills over, then it starts broadening the conversation. And I think the more we can have discussions like this, the more women will have that aha moment to say, "Whew, okay, it's not just me. I do have, you know, something to look at. I do have some precedent that's been set. And these women are still very successful in their own right, even after everything that they've endured. Okay, there's hope for me. I can, you know, I can get through this. I can work through this." And the fact that everyone's bios are actually in the book, you can reach out to them and ask them. So I just love the platform that this project has created for the discussion. I don't think it was ever not going on, but I think that the testimony, the conversation around it is what's helping to, especially now, where I think just Black folks in general are just getting tired of a lot of the foolishness. It gives a good platform and a good segue, you know, and a good space for all of that.
I agree with that. And Alyssa, I do want to go to you so you can provide your background, and also if there's what you want to add on to what Tiffany has stated. And I just want to say really quick, Tiffany, when you said as far as our community, like, okay, I'm done. I've had enough. I'm tapping out. I'm exhausted. I would say during the whole George Floyd, right, that is imprinted on our brains, hearts of what happened. I remember going to my LinkedIn and I saw all these Black people saying, "I'm done. Don't talk to me today. I don't want to hear. Don't even come near me. I'm not going to work today." I've never seen that. Usually something horrific happens and we show up at work, we put on the face that nothing's bothering us, and inside we're heartbroken. But we show up as though, and then the conversation is going on at work. Did you hear this? Did you hear? And inside we're wanting to say, "Shut up, get away from me. I don't want to talk about it." I'm trying to keep everything together to show up here to do my 9 to 5 or whatever my hours are, and not lose my job. So I think that's so important. What you said is like, we're like, no, we're done. We're going to have a conversation, but we're also wanting some action to take place. So I'm so happy that you raised that point. And Alyssa, I definitely want to go to you. Can you please provide your background, and if there's anything that you want to add to what Tiffany stated?
Sure. I am so glad to be here, y'all. I'm in the midst of greatness. I am so inspired by everything that y'all are saying, and it's really touching me. So I just want to express my gratitude for being in this space right now. My background, so I'm a little bit younger. I think I might have been the youngest in the
I think she's frozen.
Frozen a little bit.
Yeah, and I was one of the elder ones.
Did it come back? Am I back?
There we go.
Yeah. Okay, we got you back now.
Okay, sorry. I don't know what happened. But yeah, so I'm in my late 20s. I wasn't really sure what I really wanted to do, and I didn't really have many skills as a young adult. So I actually started working in healthcare pretty young. I started working at a major university, a very well-known private university in California, and started working as administrative assistant at that university, and didn't really think that was something that I wanted to do. Again, I was young. I didn't really have an education. I didn't really know what I was doing, but it paid the bills. And I had this experience that I wrote about in the book that really pushed me to realize that I wanted to get an education, and I didn't want to just stay trapped in something. Like, I never really made choices out of actually making choices. I made them out of necessity, and I wanted to get out of that. And so I went to school. I'm actually finishing my undergrad right now. I am a student at the University of California, Santa Cruz. I'm graduating in June. Yeah, thank you, with a degree in philosophy, and I'm going to law school in the fall. I know. So I will be working in the legal field, but outside of corporate America or working in an office, I do a lot of service work in the community. So I do a lot of work in criminal justice reform. Right now, I'm the chair for the Bay Area Children of Incarcerated Parents Partnership, and so we just provide advocacy and raise awareness for children who are impacted by the criminal justice system. I run a nonprofit called the Walls to Bridges Project that I founded, and we foster communication between folks who are incarcerated and their children through mediations and through a book program, which is really awesome. Incarcerated folks can send a book to their kid through our program. And then I just do a lot of other things. I sit on boards for organizations that are working on similar issues, children with incarcerated parents. I do research at my university on incarceration and the effects on families and communities, particularly on Black children. And then I do research on the needs of Black students at my university in regard to on-campus police. I also am a mentor for incoming Black students at my campus, and I am an intern for the Center for Public Philosophy. So I plan ethics debate competitions and have coached teams for ethics competitions for students from underserved and underprivileged high schools. So I kind of have my hands dipped in a lot of different things. The goal is to, again, go to law school this fall. I already have an idea of where I'm going, but I can't publicly say. And yeah, then I hope to just be a legal advocate for my community and the folks that I care about: Black folks, brown folks, poor folks, system impacted folks. So that's my background. That's who I am. I did, again, write about my time working at a university and in healthcare for the book, which was a really positive experience. And I'll answer your second question, which was about relating to what Tiffany said. I really did so much. I think that one thing that this process has really taught me in regard to my own self-care is that I don't need white folks to validate my experience for it to be real. I do not need that. When I heard of this opportunity and I already knew kind of what I wanted to write about was something that had happened in my workplace, and it was part of the reason why I left earlier than I maybe people might not have advised me to. But, one of the things was I felt really gaslit. I didn't know if I was crazy or not. I had this experience, I had these feelings, I didn't feel validated. I saw that I was being treated differently than everyone around me. I mean, I worked in an office where everyone was allowed to work from home except for me. Mm-hmm. And I was the only person of color in that entire office. And it was this high, I was just highly scrutinized, and everything I did was watched very carefully. And I felt like I knew I was the bottom of the totem pole when it came to positions, but I was treated like that too, and I was also treated very well. I did have allies. I'm not going to say that was all bad, but one thing that this process has really taught me is that experience I had, the way that I felt, recognizing that I was treated differently, I can just have that experience. I can just validate that myself, or I can talk to other Black women and hear yeah, I've had that same experience too. You're not crazy for feeling you're treated differently, and it's probably because of racism. And so today I get to validate myself. I don't need to look outside of myself for, someone to say that my experience is okay. And I think that I also related to what Tiffany was saying too, that self-care isn't just about, one aspect. It's about me at home. It's about me at work, me at school, me with my relationship with myself, my relationship with my kid, my relationship with my friends. Am I exercising? Am I eating well? There's all these different things that compose self-care. And so the more I learn to practice something in one area, the more it bleeds into these other areas. Like Vaughn was saying, it could go both ways. It could be, I'm feeling crazy and upset and triggered and traumatized, so I'm going to traumatize those around me, or I'm feeling healthy, happy, whole, with who I am as a woman, as a young woman, a woman of color, someone who's system impacted, someone who's low income. Like, I can be in all of my intersectional identities and still love myself. And when I can be okay doing that, it doesn't matter like what other folks are doing, because I get to show up for myself and I get to show up for my community, and I get to show up for other Black folks, especially women professionally. Like, there are women who I'm talking to right now, even though I'm only 27, like I'm talking to 19, 20, 21-year-olds. I'm talking to folks that are younger than me, and I'm like, all right, look, this is what I went through, and you're not crazy. And if you want to go this route, you can, but hey, this route might be a little bit easier. Like, I get to be there for folks because I've finally learned how to be there for myself. And that only really came through like other women, especially women of color, teaching me how to do that too. So it's like this like intergenerational love, even though we're not all related, but we kind of still are. You know what I mean?
Experience, yeah.
You're on mute, Kai.
There I go again. Thank you. But it's that common thread, that shared experience in which you're able to relate to them. And so beautiful job that you're doing, working towards getting your law degree, and then just in giving back to the community. And we really need advocates like you in our community. So thank you so much for the work that you are doing. And Tiffany, I kind of want to build on what Alyssa said as far as making that connection to her experience and understanding that, okay, this was racism that I was experiencing. And how do I find, and let me know if it's okay to say this, is to find my own voice in this, to say, this is how I felt, and I'm going to voice how I felt, regardless of what other people think. So Tiffany, in your work, when you were talking about the Black women that you work with, your clients, and beginning to kind of draw lines to, so this is why this is going, maybe you're having these situations at home because of what's going on in the workplace. How were you able to draw connections that maybe they were experiencing these macro aggressions in the workplace as it relates to race?
It's not very hard to draw those conclusions, especially when we look at some of the stories of the women that are on this project. It's not very hard. But in general, microaggressions are set up in such an ambiguous way that it is very easy to be gaslit. It is very easy to say that you are too sensitive, that you just took it the wrong way or anything like that. Particularly because I think the difficulty for Black women is that you have to walk this very fine line. If you are too demonstrative, you are the angry Black woman. If you don't say enough and you just take it on the chin, you are the strong Black woman. And so both of those stereotypes, although we can look at historically how they have served, how we got there and how they've served us, it puts this extra pressure because you don't want to say too much, because then they're going to think you're angry and then you're not going to be up for that promotion or up for that other thing. And so a lot of the work that I do with helping women to find their voice, whether it's in situations like these or others, is having them start with what their values are. You don't have to, like Alyssa said, you don't need validation from anybody else. What are your values? What are you thinking? What are you feeling? Okay, you have the right to feel however you feel. The question is, what are you going to do with what you feel? Because what happened to you may not have been your fault. Whether you're bringing past trauma into your workplace or you've been traumatized in the workplace and you're taking that home, it's not your fault. You can't change what was done to you. But the healing from that is absolutely your responsibility. And so I like to center my work around, what is it that you need now, right now? Do you just need somebody to say you're not crazy? Okay, you're not crazy. Do you need to create a plan and a strategy to remove yourself from this stressful environment? Do you need support because you feel like you don't have anywhere to go in navigating this environment? So really, it's about looking inside and figuring out your values and who you are, and standing in your authentic self and finding your authentic voice, not the voice that everybody says, not, filtering it through, well, if I say this way, they're going to think this. No. And then from there, we work on effective communication, because there is a way to communicate what you said violated my values. It caused me to feel in this way without, all of the, and because what we not going to do, boo, like, you don't have to do that, and there's a way to do it that you don't have to feel like you're going there. You can write like we typically go through, human resources, who are your allies there. And that's very important. Have you located an ally? Because if you haven't located an ally, then your strategy might look completely different. One size doesn't fit all in navigating it while you're there or navigating your way out of it. So it really just boils down to finding your voice, like getting in touch with, digging through all of the rubbish and all of the rubble of who society says you ought to be, who, your manager says they want you to be, even your roles as, wife, mom, spouse, sister, auntie, whatever. All of those roles aside, who are you really? What is your authentic voice? And then building a pathway to communicate that clearly and effectively, because then that's how you figure out whether you need to stay, whether you need to go, whether you need to call a lawyer, whether you need, you know what I mean? But it has to be unique to who you are. And let's be honest, there are some folks who just don't want to fight. They fought enough. It has been draining enough just to endure this day to day. And all they want to do is figure out, how do I salvage my career and move to the next phase? That's fine too. As long as you get away from whatever is weighing on you by using your authentic voice. And whether that's done, a lot of times it's done with me in the therapy room, but it can be done with an accountability partner, just kind of drilling down and figure out, who am I, what's important to me, and what do I need right now? You don't have to worry about 5 years from now. You don't have to worry about, 3 years from now, I'm going to have to do this. A year from now. No, what do you need right now? It's about seeking safety first, and then we can add all of the other stuff on top of it.
Totally agree. And Tiffany, I just want to say, this is the importance of going to therapy. And I say that because trauma is so normalized in our community and dealing with racism, that we could tell a friend, oh, this is what I'm going through at work. And she could say, girl, that's just how it is. And and that's not a healthy way to operate in that space. If you are a person that's, listen, I'm at wits end, I can't, and everyone around you is saying that's just how it is. So that's why I think the work that you do is so important for us to realize, no, that may be how it is, but I don't have to stay in that environment. And this is a strategy for me to leave that environment. So Nadeige, going to you, do you want to build upon anything that Tiffany has just said? And also, I do want to talk about the experiences. I did not come from the corporate space. I came from the political space, which kind of feels like corporate, I imagine, sometimes. But I came from the political and working in government. And I did notice there was a difference between my interaction with white women and white men. So I did want to talk a little bit about if you had different experiences, maybe you have not, but I did want to broach that topic. So Nadeige, starting with you, just to kind of get your experience, did you see a difference with the aggressions, microaggressions, or the treatment?
Well, from the industry that I transitioned from, there's naturally a viciousness that's kind of there because it comes with the territory. I felt that women were more encouraged to act viciously to kind of impress the stakeholders in the business. So I think in that regard, probably women were probably a little bit more vicious than men, just to gain the attention and the approval. But as far as it being more than or less than based on sex, that was the nature of the industry. It was a vicious industry, and you had to be thick-skinned to survive and take it every day, because that's how it was, and it is.
And I think you did talk about the strategies, what Tiffany was saying, as far as putting strategies together to leave with your healing that you went through. So was that a part of your strategy, the healing process, or was the healing done kind of after you were able to leave that environment? When did that start for you?
The healing started for me after I had incurred my own difficult experience, because I realized that I could not function on this planet without a spiritual practice. I finally had a situation in my life that forced me to change. I could not continue the way that I was because I was up against a wall. It's either you do something about the healing or let this experience tear you down inside and ruin you. And something in me had enough hope to fight for my life and keep myself the loving, sweet person that I've always been known to be. And so I sought out the resources and the help that was out there in my community so that I could make the right decisions, not just for me, but for those that I directly affect, which is my family, my friends, my community. And in my situation, I chose not to put up too much of a fight because I was already drained. I had been in the industry for a long time. So I needed to salvage myself so I could keep going. In my particular experience, my overall peace and well-being was more important. So I sought out environments after that was conducive to that lifestyle.
That's so important, what you said, as far as believing in a higher power, whatever your belief system is. That's extremely important to help to make it through those challenging times. And while you have that belief system, putting a strategy into place. So I think you expressing that is so important. For those that are listening, I can't believe it's almost already 9:30. Time is really moving fast, but those that are listening, you're finding this information valuable. Please make sure you give this video a thumbs up, and please also share it with other, especially Black women that are in your circle. And also, this could be a great conversation for Black women if you have young daughters that are interning, going into the workplace, going to school. Could be a great conversation starter for you to sit down, watch this together, and have some dialogue. So Vaughn, I want to go to you again, just asking the experience that you had. Did you notice, as far as the microaggressions, your experiences, that it varied between gender? If it was a white woman, you dealt with, there was a certain type of tactic that she would use versus a white man. And this is a lot mentally to go through.
It is. So with my background, being military for 26 years, I dealt with both. I dealt with it not only in the government, I dealt with it in corporate America. I also dealt with it as a civilian working for the federal government. And so each environment, I would say, pretty much offers equal, right? The higher you go in an organization, it's probably going to be more so the men that don't want you there, or it could be the women that don't think you deserve to be there. So for me, it was really balanced. It was really balanced. I saw it on both. Now, I had a strength that most women don't have. I'm a middle child born between two brothers. So I've always worked in a male dominant environment, even to this day. It is not uncommon that my clients don't look like me. They're not Black and brown, nor are they women. I can walk into a room with 42 men that are all oil and gas and construction workers. Okay. So that hasn't changed for me, but it is so important to know your rights. I want to get back to what Dr. Tiffany said. Even as I'm training, if I go into an organization and I'm conducting new hire orientation, every organization has a policy and procedure. There are laws, there are obligations. You said, Kai, after George Floyd, that was no surprise with the work center, because if you talked about LinkedIn, How many corporations have we seen since that live incident that went global? That we believe in inclusion. We are very diverse in this organizations. All right, hold them accountable. Hold them accountable. Does it take strength? Absolutely. My second case, well, the federal government, as I was enlisted, was one arm of the government. It was much easier to fight the federal government as a civilian than it was the military. I fought on both ends. I knew my rights. Tiffany says, have an ally. Sometimes the people that are in position to protect and represent you will not. They're going to sell out. Do you have the strength and the wherewithal? What I learned from me personally through prayer, much prayer and supplication, much prayer. I was on an assignment, and my assignment is still the same today when it comes to compliance. I'm always going back. What is legal? What does the policy say? Are they forfeiting on their obligation to you? Is the environment that you're working in safe? Is it conducive for you producing on your job? You know, I'm going to go straight to the law. Kudos to you, Alyssa, for wanting to represent people. The laws are in place. Sometimes the laws need to be challenged. They need to be rewritten, and the upper echelon has to be held accountable. Tiffany, good Lord, if I knew in 30 years ago, 15 years ago, my legal rights as I know them now, I would have taken a sabbatical. I would have had a therapist very early in my case that went to federal court. I would have had a therapist very early, and I would say a trusted therapist, because some of them will tell you, suck it up. You should be glad that you have the position that you have. You're making how much money? You got this, you got your military retirement. I had to face those conversations before I found someone that had the empathy and the sympathy to represent my case to federal court. That was a long, hard, painful process, but I knew in doing so it would change policy. I was on an assignment that God trusted me with that assignment. I couldn't run from it. I couldn't leave it because I had a glimpse of what would happen after that. I was working for the federal government, the only female supervisor amongst 17 men. But you see, it took my military experience. I had an identity. I knew what I was up against. But by then I was wiser, because that experience is, I recalled, I can do this, they can't do that. They said this, they did that. And it wasn't just racism, there was sexism. And the sexism were people of my color. The one white person in my department, the chief, oh, I had favor with the chief. It was my peers. It was the 17 Black men that I worked amongst. That's who I had to file against. So that's why I say, Kai, for me, it's been on equal occasion. I can't say it was one or more of the other, but know your rights. Use those employee assistance programs. Knowing now, 15 years ago, I would have been on paid leave for at least a year because of work-related stress. That's what the EAP is there for. Now, the organization may use it for discipline measure, anger management, or perhaps drug, alcohol, but it's there for you, the employee. Use it. And we talked about LinkedIn. Do you know how many HR and legal professionals are on LinkedIn and you can get free advice? Hit them up. Ask your questions. What are you dealing with? You don't have to go it alone. No one has to suffer it the way that I suffered it back in the 90s and the early 2000s. No, you don't have to do that. And that's what I want women in transition to know. You don't have to do that. You don't have to suck it up. My generation, it was get by. And that's what I titled my book. Hey, just play it safe. We don't have to play it safe any longer. Know your rights, your responsibility, hold them accountable, and get the right people that are going to represent you. Because everyone in HR, I just started with the HR professional today, they're not always there. They're representing the upper echelon. You need an HR representative that is representing you as that employee. They're out there. They're out there. You can reach me at talktobond.com. Talktobond.com. This has been great. I think there should be continuation as we're going through this healing process. Don't leave a sister behind. Don't tell a sister, oh, just be grateful that you're there, or I wouldn't, oh, don't tell. No. That's not the advice. That's what's gotten us where we are now. And that's what allows the perpetrator to continue their actions, because we don't speak up. And we don't speak up correctly. Thank you, Tiffany, because you don't have to go all in like that. We got to know how to represent ourselves. That is very important. You want to be professional, you want to be heard, and you want to be respected, then there's a way that you speak, there's a way that you position yourself, and that's what I help women do. So again, talktobond.com. Thank you, Kai. This has been amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And we are starting to wind down, unfortunately, but I have loved having you on the podcast. You all are welcome back anytime. Thank you so much. Von, I did want to go back to something you said as we come to a close, the importance of knowing your rights. On Sunday, I do this virtual event called Return of the Kings. It's about Black men and empowering and healing trauma that they may have experienced. But I bring that up because on Sunday, we had someone come on to talk about estate planning, life insurance, all of that stuff, and how to set that up. And what kept coming up is that we as a community, we don't know our rights. We don't know who to go to, who to call when certain things come up. So when you had said that about knowing your rights when you are in the job arena, that's so important. And I just see that's a common thread in different areas that we navigate in, of not really knowing our rights, not really knowing the law, the language. So I'm so happy that you are a resource to those that are listening. So you can get your therapy services from Tiffany, go to Von to help you in your with any type of case you have regarding your employment. And Alyssa, I want to go to you as we start to wind down, because I want everyone to have a chance to kind of have some closing thoughts. Again, you are going into the legal world, going to law school, and then being able to help the community. So hearing what Von is saying, how does that resonate with you and the work that you were doing?
I'm sorry, y'all. If you can hear my cat meowing in the background, he's talking a little too loud. So I apologize if you can hear him. I'm pretty excited for law school. I think that, we know there's not a lot of representation for Black and Brown folks in the legal profession. One of the things, or even just in law school, one of the things that this process has really revealed to me has just been how few of us there are. There's certain schools I've looked at, out of a class of 300, they have, 7 Black people. It's insane. It's just, It's absolutely insane. And when you look at those numbers, or at least me, when I look at those numbers, I think like, wow, no wonder our legal representation is so skewed toward, like what Von was saying, there's people out there that you think might fight for you, that might be in your corner, might have your back, but at the end of the day, like, they enjoy the same privileges that an oppressive system gives them. They identify more with the oppressor than they do with you. And so I'm excited for law school. I totally forgot what your question was already. I'm so sorry, because my cat was distracting me.
That's okay. Just the importance of us knowing the law, which you kind of touched upon, as far as knowing kind of who's in the classroom and who's getting the education to help the community.
Absolutely. I think it's so important for us to know our rights and to know the law. I think it's so important for folks of color to go into the legal profession exactly for that reason. Because I'm not just I'm going to law school to learn how to read the law. It is difficult. It is hard. Pick up a Supreme Court case and read through that thing. You're like, what the heck is going on? What are they talking about? And so it's not just like learning the law, it's giving access to folks who aren't going to go to law school. It's giving access to, the millions and millions of Black and Brown folks out there that aren't going to get that education, because I get to be that bridge between this is what the law says and this is your right.
Mm-hmm.
And then also too, I just hope that for me at least, as I move forward, there's what the law says and then there's what the law does. And just because something is law doesn't necessarily mean that it's right either. And so yes, there's what rights we have, what legal rights we have, but I also just want to go forward letting people know that like we have rights to be happy, healthy, and not treated unwell or not treated with unkindness just because we're human and just because we deserve it and we're worthy of being here and we deserve space and health and our basic needs met. We don't deserve abuse, nor do we have to tolerate abuse. So I'm really passionate about going forward and just working inside and outside the system to be a resource for folks of color.
Thank you so much, Alyssa, for that. We really appreciate that. And Tiffany, what you would like to add on and to share with our listeners as we start to come to a close?
I would just say, that I think it's important to piggyback off of what Vaughn and Alyssa have already said, that you understand, knowing your rights is one thing, but advocating for those rights is where I think we got to go, because the system was designed to keep people who look like us from being able to read so that we wouldn't know what our rights were. Right. So this is when people say the system is broke, the system is not broken. The system is operating exactly as it was designed to work. What is happening is we are not supposed to know our rights, because if you know them, then suddenly you have a tool with which you can fight, and it's very, very important. And, Vaughn was talking about the EAP. I have people who come to see me through their EAP for things that have nothing to do with work. Why? Because most cases you get 5 to 10 free sessions that you don't have to pay for out of pocket. So now cost is no longer a barrier. We've got to get over that hurdle. We've got to know that we have the right through our insurance companies to ask for access to mental health clinicians. You have the right to ask for a clinician who looks like you, who believes like you. And even though in the mental health space, we're having the same issues as Alyssa is finding in the legal space, where there's only, I think, 2 to 4% of folks who identify as people of color in the entire counseling profession, but you still have the right to look for those. You have a ton of sites: therapy for Black girls, therapy for Black men, Therapy Den, TheraTribe. You have the right to seek out a person, a healer of whatever, whether it's a counselor, whether it's a spiritual advisor, someone who looks like you and shares your beliefs. That is your right. Yeah. That is something that no one can take from you. And if they tell you that it doesn't meet medical necessity, then you tell them that it is discriminatory practice for them to deny you an opportunity to meet with someone who you're going to connect with. So it really just goes back to the system operating exactly as it was designed. We do have to know our rights, but more than that, we have to be very vocal and advocate for those rights when we find out we have them.
So true. Thank you for that, Tiffany. That's so important. And it's so empowering too, to know that, no, I don't have to just sit and let this happen. And now for our last comments of the evening, Nadeige, thank you so much. You're the one that made this. Keep looking down at my mute just to make sure I'm on, I'm not on mute. So Nadeige, thank you so much for introducing me to the women that are on this panel. It's been an honor to host you, and thank you so much for trusting me and to come on the platform and share your story and your experiences to help heal those that are listening, because there's nothing like going through something like this and feeling that you are alone and you have no idea what to do to move forward, get out of it. Should I stay? As Vaughn and both Tiffany said, everyone's telling me I should stay because I should be happy about my benefits that I get, my retirement plan and whatever else. So I'm glad that it's like, no, you don't have to stay in that type of toxic environment. So Nadeige, is there anything that you would like to add to our conversation this evening as we wrap up for others that may be listening?
For additional resources, you heard what Tiffany had to say and what Vaughn had to say. Also, recognize that you have an EEOC office at the federal and state level that is available to serve you. There are employment lawyers that are available to serve you, and if cost is an issue, they have resources that you need to look into that can help buffer the costs for some states. So look into those things, and also keep your spiritual practice, whatever that may be, because that is the thing that is going to carry you through intrinsically, no matter how hard or long the battle is.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much for that. That's so true. My meditation practice, whoo, child, that helped me out so much. So that is so true. So thank you for saying those words. Thank you all for taking the time to share your story on this platform. For those that are listening, please make sure you go to the description box so that you can make a purchase and you can support the work. Again, the title of this book is Shut 'Em Down, Black Women, Racism in Corporate America. I think I have American in the scrolling, but it's America. So just go to the description box to make sure that you can purchase the book. And Jez is holding it up. So make sure that you support the work. This is an important conversation that must continue, and it will. Also, if you want to learn more about the services that I offer, please visit my website, kaimarie.com. And with that being said, I look forward to meeting everyone again on this platform. And I ask my panelists to please stay on as we go into the green room. And everyone else, please have a great night. And thank you, ladies, again for joining me.
Thank you, Kai.
Thank you. Good night, guys.
Thank you.